Hi, I'm Heba from Yoga with Heba. Today's video will focus on strengthening the lower body and learning parts of our anatomy. You have to remember to show your lower body some love because it's what supports you throughout your day. Let's go have some fun on the mat. To learn the parts of our body. So this is anatomical position, and the front of your body is considered anterior. Sometimes we'll talk about the frontal part of your body as well. The back side would be considered the posterior, and if we're moving our muscles towards the posterior, it would be considered distal. When you are standing hip distance apart, you want to align your hips with your legs. You don't want to stand too close together or too far apart. That would affect your hips in a bad way. Make sure the hip joint is aligned with the anterior or frontal part. This is a flexion of the front and an extension of the back, and then we move it backwards. We're extending the front and flexing the back. Now we'll look at an external rotation of the hip. The hip is a rotating joint. Next, we'll look at adduction and abduction. Pushing out, you're adducting to the hip. Pushing in, you're abducting to the hip. The shoulder also is a rotating joint, like the hip. So you notice that you can rotate your hip. You can also rotate your shoulder. And it's very important to pay attention to these joints and keep healthy. The neck also is a rotating joint. Very important to stretch these parts before we begin our yoga flow, which will help to focus on the lower body. Making sure your joints are healthy is a strong point to help keep you healthy as you age. Come join me on the mat as we strengthen our lower body. Today we will set an intention to strengthen our lower body. It carries us throughout our day and supports us, and it's important that we keep it healthy and strong in order for the lower body to stay strong as we age. Join me in Tadasana, connecting to your breath, standing with your feet hip distance apart, your arms by your side, externally rotated, facing the anterior portion of your body. Continue to breathe here. Pay attention to anything that may come up. Don't judge it, just notice it. Now extend your arms above your head in extended mountain pose, Udita Tadasana. Here you are stretching the anterior part of your body all the way from your neck to your trunk, to your abdomen, your legs, and your ankles, connecting to your breath. On the next inhalation, forward fold, hinging at the hips. Now we are flexing the anterior and extending the posterior part of our body. Your spine, your hip, your hamstrings, your calves, your ankle, flexing the front hip, quadriceps, and knees, connecting to our breath. On your next inhalation, Meet me in a halfway lift, bringing your hands to your shins. You're hinging at the hips with a straight back, extending the spine and flexing the front. Looking at the top of your mat, keeping your hands on your shin. Take a few breaths here. And now forward fold again, feeling that stretch in your posterior. Now meet me in plank, bringing your arms beneath your shoulders. Here you're flexing your posterior, your spine, your triceps and arms, your wrists, your gluteus. Your hamstrings are the synergist muscle and your quadriceps are the antagonist muscle. Now slowly bring yourself down to the mat, releasing tension from the anterior and posterior portion of your body. Now meet me in Bhujangasana or baby cobra. Bring your arms beneath your shoulders and your elbows pointed to the ceiling. Lift up lightly, keeping your neck aligned with your spine. This is a flexion on the posterior neck, spine, gluteus, the hamstrings, the calves, the ankles, even your toes. The frontal portion of your body on the mat is in an extension. Contract and release your abdomen to match your breath. And continue connecting to your breath in this pose. Feeling the strength of your muscles as they extend and as they flex. Continue connecting to your breath and paying attention to anything that comes up for you as you do this pose. Come onto all fours to prepare for cat-cow, Marja Asana, Vitilasana. Here you are going to align your knees with your hips and your arms with your shoulders. In cat, you are extending your posterior, feeling a stretch in your spine, and flexing your anterior so everything is contracting. And then in cow, you are going to release your breath, and now you're flexing your posterior and extending your anterior. Continue connecting to your breath, inhaling and exhaling. Notice how your spine releases any tension in cat, and notice how you open your heart chakra in cow. Enjoy this moment here in these positions where you are really nourishing your body and making yourself stronger. Continue in cat-cow for 6 more counts. Now go back onto your hips, stretching arms in opposite direction in front of you into Child's Pose or Balasana, completely extending the posterior from your neck to your toes and flexing the front or the anterior part of your body, connecting back to your breath and lowering your heart rate. Next, curl your toes under, pressing on the anterior of your hands to the mat, lifting your hips towards the ceiling, into downward dog or Adho Mukha Savasana. Here, the body is split. The anterior, your wrists and your triceps are extending. The trunk and the abdomen are flexing. Your quadriceps and your shins are in flexion. The posterior portion of your body, the forearms and the biceps are in flexion. The spine and the neck are extending. Your glutes and your hamstrings are extending, as well as your calves, ankles, and toes. Stay here for a few breaths and feel the strength of your body. Walk your hands back into mountain pose and step your right foot out, bringing your feet more than hip distance apart, pointing the right leg forward, and the back leg should be perpendicular to the front. Bring your arms to shoulder level, bending your front knee to align with the ankle. Find yourself in Warrior 2 or Virabhadrasana. Flexion occurs in your right quadricep and your right knee, and extension occurs in your right hamstring and the gluteus. There's flexion in the triceps and extension in the biceps. Connect to your breath. The right knee and the right quadricep, which is the anterior, are all in flexion. Reach the right arm down to the right ankle or onto a block if you need, into extended side angle, Utthita Parvaskonasana. Here, there's an adductor happening on the right hip and an abductor happening on the left hip. The extension on the inner thigh and a flexion on the outer thigh. It strengthens the legs, flexibility in the joints. It opens up the trunk and the heart chakra, reduces backache, and flexes the spine. Continue here, connecting to your breath. On your next inhalation, bring both hands on either side of your right foot into high lunge, connecting to your breath. Exhale. The flexion is occurring in the anterior right leg, and extension is found in the posterior of the left leg. On your next inhalation, meet me in pyramid pose or Parsvottanasana. Lift your hip towards the ceiling, straightening both legs, or bending the knee slightly if needed. There's a whole interior flexion and your posterior is extending, connecting to your breath. Continuing the stretch of the posterior portion of the body, bring your body and your arms to the center of the mat with your legs extended wider than hip distance apart. The anterior portion of your body, or the front part, is flexing while the posterior is extending. Continue connecting to your breath. Now we will follow the same sequence on the left side of your body. Bring the left leg forward, pointing forward, and your back leg should be perpendicular. In Warrior 2, bringing your arms shoulder height. Your left leg is, the frontal portion is flexing and the distal portion is extending. So that's the anterior is flexing and the posterior is extending. The right leg, the anterior is flexing and the posterior is extending. On your next inhalation, bring your left leg to your left ankle or a block if necessary in extended side angle. Here, your left leg, the anterior portion is flexing and the posterior portion is extending. Your right leg, the anterior part is flexing while the posterior part is flexing. your arms, your triceps are flexing and your biceps are extending. This is a very good pose for strengthening the lower body and releasing any lower back pain and opening up your heart chakra. On your next inhalation, bend your left leg and bring both hands on either side of your left leg in runner's lunge. Here, the anterior portion of your body is flexing while the posterior part of your body is extending. Continue connecting to your breath. On your next inhalation, come into pyramid pose, straightening both legs, hinging at the hips. Your hands are in the same position as high lunge. Here, the anterior portion of your body is flexing. My left hamstring is definitely a little tighter than my right, so here my knee is slightly bent to compensate. On your next inhalation, bring your body to the center of the mat, extending your legs further than hip distance apart in a three-legged wide forward fold. You're continuing the extension of the posterior part of your body, releasing any tension in your lower back, and you're flexing the anterior portion of your body. Continue connecting to your breath. Here, cross your arms in front of you, allowing them to hang, creating a deeper extension in your posterior. Connecting to your breath, allowing the stretch to really release any tension. Slowly roll up and adjust. Now we will practice side lunge or skandonasana. From standing at the top of your mat, turn to your left, inhale and lengthen. Exhale and take a giant step to the left with your left foot. Bend your right knee while keeping your chest upright. Focus your weight in your heels and come as low as feels strong and comfortable. Breathe and flow a few times. Here you're flexing the frontal part of your legs, your quadriceps, your knee, your shin, and you're extending the posterior. Now you're going to try it on the next side. This posture uses your glutes, your hamstrings, your quads, as well as your inner thigh muscle, and really helps to strengthen the lower body. As I move to the next side, I use my hands in front of me to support myself, focusing on keeping balance. Continue connecting to your breath here. On your next inhalation, go into tabletop position for Hydrant Dog. Take a deep inhalation, and as you exhale, keep your knee bent as you lift your right knee to your right side. Try to keep your hips level and your knee in line with your hips without shifting forward by your shoulders or back by your left shin. You may wish to place a block on your low back to help keep your hips level. Breathe and flow a few times on each side. This posture is the quintessential yoga pose for glutes as it strongly activates the gluteus medius and minimus. Here, there's adductor on your hip and extension on your inner thigh. You're also externally rotating your leg. Now let's continue on the other side. Continue in Hydrant Dog for 2 more rounds, 5 reps on each side. Connecting to your breath always. On your next inhalation, come back to tabletop to start Bird Dog. Bring your right arm and left leg out. The frontal portion of your body is flexing while the posterior part is extending. Then bring your elbow to your knee to flex the anterior and extend the posterior. Do this on both sides, continuing to connect to your breath, inhaling and exhaling as you extend and flex. Practice this pose for 1 more round, 5 times on each side. On your next inhalation, meet me in chair pose or Uddha Katanasana. This posture activates the gluteus medius and minimus and the adductors. Come into chair pose with your knees together or slightly separated. Focus on rooting down through your heels as you shift your knees back. Make sure you can see your toes. With a firm base, draw your tailbone toward your heel and squeeze your core. This subtle shift reduces the bend in your low back. Encourage your shoulders to come over your hips as if leaning into a wall, and then relax them away from your ears. Breathe here anywhere from 3 to 10 breaths. Here you're extending your frontal portion of the trunk and flexing your spines and triceps. You're flexing the anterior legs and extending the posterior. Now come down onto your back for bridge pose or Setu Bandhasana. This is another classic yoga pose for glutes. This posture uses the gluteus maximus to extend the hips. From laying down, bend your knees and bring your feet close to your seat. A good distance is where you can touch your heels, but you can't grab your ankle. On an exhale, press into the floor with your feet and lift your hips, keeping your shoulders grounded. Press into your hands and arms to create more lift. Experiment here with which muscles you activate. Keeping your feet on the ground, imagine pulling them towards your seat and feel what happens. Then imagine pushing your feet away and notice the difference. Hold for 3 to 5 breaths for 3 rounds. Here you're extending your anterior and you're flexing your posterior. Stretch your arms above your head and extend your legs. Come up into staff pose or dandasana. Sit with your legs together and stretched out in front of you. Flex your feet and extend out through the heels. Draw your lower belly in and up. Slide your shoulder blades back and down along your spine. Bring your shin slightly back and down. Keep the base of your neck in line with your spine. Stay in this pose for from 5 to 10 breaths. Keep engaging your abdominal muscles to maintain this pose. You may sit on a folded blanket if that feels comfortable for you. Here you're extending the posterior part of your body and flexion happens in the front of the body. Extending your arms above your head on your next inhalation and hinging at the hips, forward fold, and make a yogi toe lock with your front finger and your big toe. This pose extends the posterior part of the body from the spine, the glutes, the hamstrings, the calves, the ankles, heels, and even the toes. Connect here with your breath. Stay here for 3 to 5 counts. Now lay on your back with your knees bent in Supine Pigeon Pose, Supta Kapto Asana. Here your arms are by your side. Bring your right ankle to your left knee in external rotation. This position will extend your inner thigh and contract your outer thigh. Lift your leg towards your chest in a contraction of your anterior and an extension of your posterior, using your hands to support the back of the leg. Bring your right knee over to your left side, twisting and extending your spine and low back. Keep the shoulders flat to the floor. Close the eyes and relax into the supine spinal twist. Your arms should be in a T position. On your next inhalation, bring your feet back to the floor. Now let's practice on the left side. Bring your left ankle to your right knee and bring your right knee towards your chest in a posterior extension. Bring your hands behind your right thigh to support the extension. The benefits here include stretching the outer hip area, which can help to relieve low back tension and sciatica. Pay attention to any discomfort you may feel and have compassion for yourself. Do not push yourself into positions that don't feel comfortable. Listen to your instincts. Let's continue the stretch for a supine spinal twist or Supta Matsyendrasana. Bring your arms into a T position and drop the left knee over to the left side of your body. Twisting the spine and low back, relax into the posture. Let gravity pull the knee down. To release, inhale and roll the hips back down to the floor. Again, this pose realigns and lengthens the spine and hydrates the spinal discs. If you have any knee injury, pay attention to your hold and bring your hands to the front of your knee. Let's rest here for a bit and release any tension in the lower back by rotating the knees internally, keeping the feet flat. It's so important to rotate the knees in order to keep these joints healthy and move the way they should. Now welcome your Shavasana or Constructive Rest. Release any tension from your body. Connect to your breath. I want you all to meet my son, who keeps me motivated and moving. With love and light, this is Heba from Yoga with Heba. Please enjoy the rest of your day.